Hello everyone. This story is entitled The Walking Corpse from the Imogiri bamboo forest. That night, the rain fell briefly and then stopped almost deliberately, as if it were only the prelude to something much greater. In the village of Imogiri, the wind carried the scent of soil, damp leaves, and something else, something unexplainable, metallic, ancient, like blood kept too long in a closed jar. The villagers never liked the night of Jumat Legi, a sacred Friday on the Javanese calendar, not since the old days, not since before electricity came, before the roads were paved, before anyone knew what urban legend meant. But that night, something changed, something arrived early. Mr. Arjo sat on his porch. The old man was a former gravekeeper at the ancient cemetery up the hill, near the thick bamboo forest that stood like a wall of darkness, untouched by sunlight. He knew this night was no ordinary night. His chickens refused to enter the coop. His dog whimpered in a corner, tail between its legs, staring at the forest. Mr. Arjo gripped his prayer beads. His hands trembled. He didn't mutter a single prayer. Instead, he bit his lip until it bled. A small brass bell hanging on his roof began to ring softly. There was no wind, no one walking past, but the bell rang, gently, like a whisper, and Mr. Arjo knew. He knew what was coming elsewhere in the village. A young man named Yogyakarta checked the CCTV monitor in his living room. The alarm by the front gate had gone off, but no one was supposed to be outside. The black and white screen showed a narrow muddy road, still wet from the rain. Fog crept low along the ground. Then something moved. A tall, thin figure appeared from the direction of the bamboo forest, shirtless, limping. Its feet barely touched the ground, its neck tilted unnaturally, its eyes blank, hollow, its body covered in dried wounds and filth. In its hands it carried a clay offering bowl filled with flower petals, chicken blood, and burning incense. The figure never looked at the camera. It just walked, slowly, directly, until it stopped in front of Mr. Arjo's house. It stood still for a moment, then raised its head and looked directly into the camera. Its lips stretched wide. It smiled. The next morning, the village was in an uproar. Mr. Arjo was found dead, not from age, not from illness. His face was pale, his eyes were wide open, his tongue protruded from his mouth, his neck was broken. On his doorstep sat a small clay bowl and offering, flower petals, chicken blood, and incense, still faintly smoking. No one dared to touch it. No one spoke above a whisper that day. They all knew, they all remembered that was the first offering. And according to the old tales passed down through generations, there will be 99 more, one by one, until the curse is satisfied, until vengeance is full. The smoke still lingered in the air that morning. The clay bowl on Mr. Arjo's porch remained untouched. No FLIs gathered, no dogs approached. The villagers of Imogiri avoided eye contact with the house entirely. Even the bravest among them, a retired soldier and a village elder, refused to speak when asked who should remove the offering. They knew better. You don't touch what was meant for the dead, especially not when it came from the forest. Yogyakarta hadn't slept. His eyes were red, sunken, locked on the paused CCTV footage, frame by frame. He watched the thing that called itself human limp down the muddy path, its smile, its offering, its presence. He tried to convince himself it was a prank, some vengeful drunk, a sick joke. But in his heart, he knew better. His phone buzzed, a message from Ranti, the village midwife. Just one sentence. Don't open the back door tonight, no matter what. Yogyakarta stared at the message. His thumb hovered over the screen before he could reply. He heard it. The brass bell, not at Mr. Arjo's house, but his own. He turned slowly toward the front window. The bell above the porch, identical to the one at Mr. Arjo's, was swaying ever so gently. There was no wind. The air was still. Not even the banana leaves moved. Not the front door. The back. Yogyakarta froze. The warning replayed in his mind. "Don't open the back door tonight." His feet moved without command. As if pulled, the hallway stretched longer than usual. Shadows clung to the edges of the walls. The only light came from the kitchen, flickering as if struggling to stay alive. And then another knock. This time softer, slower, like a request. Yitmiko reached the door. His hand hovered over the handle. Silence. He leaned closer and heard it. A voice, barely audible. Not male, not female, not quite human. It whispered his name, Yitmiko. His knees buckled. He backed away, crawled, slammed the door to his bedroom shut, and locked it. Outside, the knocking continued, sometimes from the back, sometimes from the side, sometimes impossibly from the ceiling. The sound stopped just before dawn, when Yitmiko dared open the door. He found no footprints, no signs of intrusion, only one thing left on the back doorstep, a second clay bowl. This one filled with blackened feathers, ash, and a single human tooth. The villagers gathered again, but no one spoke of what they saw. No one dared mention Mr. Arjo, not openly. Only one thing was clear: the second offering had been delivered, but the second death had not. Not yet that night. The dogs in the village did not bark. Instead, they howled one by one, as if mourning something that hadn't happened but soon would. The howling didn't stop all night long. The dogs cried not in rage, but in grief, as if they knew who would be next, as if something old and buried had awakened, and the animals were the first to feel its breath. By morning, Mbak Ranti hadn't opened her door. Her neighbors knocked. No answer. Her front window was still shut, curtain drawn tight, and yet something reeked, a sour, iron scent, like rusted nails soaked in rot. The village head, Mr. Durman, gathered the young men to break the door. He hesitated, but only for a moment, because he saw at first a third clay bowl, this time placed on the inside of the front door, behind the glass, as if whoever or whatever left it had been inside with her when they finally forced their way in. The room was cold, unnaturally cold, the kind of cold that didn't belong in a Javanese morning. And on the wall above her bed, written in something dark and sticky, were 4 words: "Don't break the chain." Mbak Ranti was found lying on her bed, eyes open, smile wide, but her hands were shattered, every finger broken backward, as if she'd been holding on to something invisible, and it had been ripped away from her. They buried her that afternoon. No prayers, no chants, only silence. That night, Yitmiko tried to leave the village. He packed his bag, started his motorbike, and raced toward the main road. But just as he passed the bamboo forest, the engine cut off. No sputter, no warning, just dead silence. His phone had no signal, no flashlight, only the sound of the trees swaying, though there was no wind. He pushed the bike forward. The road stretched too long, like a dream refusing to end. Then, ahead, he saw something glowing. Not headlights, not a person, a bowl placed in the center of the road, the third offering. But hadn't it been in Mbak Ranti's house? He turned around. Now, the path behind him was gone, replaced with more trees, taller, darker, closer. He walked blindly until he saw another bowl, then another and another, each one glowing faintly, leading him deeper in. Until finally, he saw it, the corpse, the same figure, taller now, cleaner, its skin less rotten, its neck straighter. It opened its mouth and spoke. 3 have been received, 4 remain. Break the chain, and the dead will not walk alone. Then it vanished. Yitmiko awoke in his own bed, his bike parked outside, his shoes still muddy, but in his hands a 4th bowl, empty, waiting to be filled. Yitmiko didn't sleep that night. He sat on the cold floor of his house, lights off, one flickering candle casting shadows on the walls in front of him. The 4th bowl lay empty on a woven mat, waiting. The smell of wet earth clung to his shoes, But there was something else, the scent of ashes, not wood, not incense, something older, human, burned before dawn. He made his way to the one person who might have answers, Imogiri. An old man living at the far edge of Sumberjati, right at the foot of the bamboo forest. Most called him mad. Some whispered he was a former shaman. Others claimed he once summoned a mountain spirit, but everyone knew this. He hadn't left his land since his wife disappeared 27 years ago. Yet Miko approached carefully. The air was thick. The bamboo trees behind the old hut stood impossibly still. No birds sang. No insects buzzed. The old man was already waiting on the porch. "You've seen it," he said, before Yatmiko could speak. Yatmiko nodded. Imogiri lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. "You've brought the fourth bowl, haven't you?" He had. It was in his backpack. Still empty, still humming with something unseen. Imogiri continued. "Every 25 to 30 years, it comes back. The ritual resumes. Not by will, not by choice, but because the chain must continue." "What ritual?" Yatmiko whispered. The old man pointed at the forest. "That place is not just a bamboo grove. It's a graveyard. During the Japanese occupation, villagers betrayed their own, gave them up in exchange for food, protection, or mercy. Some were rebels, some weren't, but all were executed and buried in that forest without rites, without names." He exhaled. "Those who died in silence now speak in chains." "The bowls?" Yumiko asked. 7 offerings, 7 souls. Each time it begins again. It chooses a bearer, a chain holder. "You," Imogiri said, "have been chosen. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does." Yatmiko gripped the strap of his backpack. "How do I stop it?" "You can't stop it. You can only finish it, or die trying." A deep silence fell, then Imogiri's gaze sharpened. "You need to be careful now. The 5th bowl won't come to you. You'll be sent to it. The forest knows you're aware. It will test you." "What do you mean?" "You will see that night." As Yatmiko returned home, the streets were empty. The villagers had locked themselves inside. The wind picked up again, carrying whispers between the bamboo. When he reached his front gate, something was waiting on his doorstep. Not a bowl, not a corpse, but a child, a boy, soaking wet, eyes blank. He looked up and said, "The 5th bowl is in my house." The boy stood still at the doorstep, drenched from head to toe. Yatmiko stared. The child's eyes were pale, not white, not blind, but washed out, like memories too old to belong in a living body. "The 5th bowl is in my house," the boy said again. Then he turned and walked away, barefoot, into the mist. Yatmiko hesitated. He should have ignored it, shut the door, called someone, but something pulled at him, not curiosity, not fear, obligation. A thread wrapped around his spine, tugging him toward whatever lay ahead. He followed. The boy led him down a narrow alley between houses, deeper into the village's older quarter where the roofs sagged. The wells were sealed with cracked stone, and windows hadn't opened in years. Finally, they stopped in front of a tiny, crumbling house. The boy didn't enter. He simply pointed at the door and vanished into the fog. Yatmiko stepped inside. It was dark. Dust hung in the air like smoke. The wooden floor groaned under his feet. At the far end of the room sat an altar, old, rotting, covered in mold, and there, resting atop it, the 5th bowl. But this one was different, not empty. It was full of teeth. Tiny human teeth, some fresh, still pink at the roots, some yellowed with age, and in the center of them, coiled like a parasite, a lock of hair. Children's laughter echoed behind him. He turned. The room was no longer empty. Lining the walls, shoulder to shoulder, stood children, dozens of them, some naked, some still in school uniforms from decades ago, all pale, all silent. Yatmiko backed away until his heel hit the threshold. The front door was gone. Then one of the children stepped forward, a girl with one eye missing and a ribbon in her hair. "You're the chain bearer now," she whispered, "and chains must be carried." More voices joined hers, in unison. "Don't drop it, don't spill it, don't stop." Suddenly, the children vanished, yet Miko found himself alone, standing in the center of the old room. Bowl of teeth cradled in his hands, he ran. When he burst out of the house, dawn was breaking, but something had changed. The village was no longer silent. Screams echoed in the distance. He looked up. Smoke. A house was on fire. He ran toward it and stopped. It was Pak Durman's house, the village head. His body lay in the yard, curled around something he had tried to protect, a sixth bowl. But it was shattered, empty, broken, and from within the fire, a shape emerged, tall, straight-backed, its skin now fully healed, its mouth split open not to speak, but to smile. Yet Miko froze. The figure walking out of the fire wasn't burning. Flames licked around it, curled behind its feet, but its body tall, dry, pale remained untouched. It walked like something ancient trying to remember how to be human. Its joints moved just a little too far. Its head tilted with unnatural precision. The smile stayed wide, cracked like dry clay. Yet Miko couldn't move, not even as it looked at him, not even as it spoke. One bowl broken, one soul must take its place, and then it vanished into the smoke, leaving only scorched grass and the shattered remains of the sixth bowl. By midday, the village had changed. No one came out of their homes. No one spoke. Windows were shut, doors locked, prayers whispered too late. Only Miko walked the streets, carrying the fifth bowl in a cloth-wrapped bundle. And in his head, the voice kept echoing, "Don't drop it, don't spill it, don't stop." He needed answers, more than Emba Wiryo had given him, answers buried deeper than fear, older than guilt. So he returned to the bamboo forest, not to the edge, deeper, far beyond the footpaths, past the blackened trees and hollow drums of wind, into the heart of the thicket where bamboo grew in spirals and the earth dipped into a shallow basin. That's where he saw it, the graves. Unmarked, covered in moss and dry offerings. Dozens of them, some were cracked open, as if dug from within, others looked freshly sealed, and in the center, wrapped in chains that had rusted into the roots, a body, or what was left of one, mummified, still clutching a bowl to its chest. The bowl was black, unlike the others, yet Miko stepped closer. Then he heard breathing. Behind him, he turned. Emba Wiryo, but something was wrong. His face had changed, his eyes were clouded, white-veined, his mouth trembled, and his voice was no longer his. "You shouldn't have come here." "Who are you?" Yet Miko demanded. "I was the last chain bearer," the old man said, his voice layered like two voices speaking at once. "I broke the seventh bowl. I ended it. For a time." Miko's hands tightened around the fifth bowl. "Then how is it back?" Emba Wiryo shuddered. "Because no curse ends, it only waits." The old man reached out, trembling. "There is still one bowl left to be placed, and if I don't," Miko asked. The whisper came not from Emba Wiryo, but from the grave itself. "Then we will rise together." The forest began to move. Not the wind, the trees, bamboo trunks shifted, groaned, bent toward him like bones waking up from every grave. Fingers curled upward, eyes opened, mouths smiled wide with no tongues behind them. Yet Miko ran. As he reached the edge of the forest, the final message followed him through the air like smoke. One bowl left, one chain to bind them all. Yet Miko didn't sleep, not because he was afraid, though fear still clawed at his spine, but because he knew. Tonight, it would end, one way or another. He sat in silence, the fifth bowl still wrapped tightly in cloth on his lap. Next to it, he had reassembled the shattered pieces of the sixth bowl, gathered from Pak Durman's yard. It was cracked beyond repair, but yet Miko couldn't bring himself to leave any part behind. He was the chain bearer, and he was almost at the end. Only one bowl remained, only one offering. The whisper still rang in his ears. One bowl left, one chain to bind them all. Before midnight, he returned to the forest alone, but the bamboo no longer swayed. It bowed as if the entire grove was breathing, inhaling him deeper, folding him into its chest like prey. He passed the graves again, all of them empty now. The chains that once held the dead were broken, dragged through the underbrush, rusted and stained with fresh soil. At the center of the clearing, the black bowl still lay in the mummified corpse's arms, the seventh bowl. He stepped forward, trembling, as his fingers touched the rim of the bowl. The ground split open. Figures rose not from earth, but from shadow, translucent, bone-thin, bound in ghostly ropes, their mouths opened in silence, faces twisted in endless screams. Among them, Pak Arjo, Pak Derman, the children, all the victims, all the chain bearers before him. One by one, they raised their hands toward him. Yatmiko shouted over the roar of wind and groaning trees, "Tell me how to end this." And then he heard it, not from the ghosts, not from the forest, from himself, a voice inside him, not his own, the voice of the first, the betrayed, the one buried alive, carrying the first chain, ended by giving what they never received, a name, a prayer, a witness. Yatmiko dropped to his knees. He placed the seventh bowl before him and whispered the old prayer Amba Wirio once taught him. He called each soul by the name. He had found records of the executed villagers from the Japanese era. One by one, he gave them their names back: Marni, Sukro, Darmo, Rukaya, Sutrisno. He burned incense from his pocket. He poured water over the seventh bowl. He wept. Then silence. No more groaning. No more whispers. The ghosts were gone. The bamboo stood still. The black bowl shattered quietly. At dawn, Yatmiko returned to the village. The air felt different, lighter, but he knew something had changed in him. The curse had ended, not through violence, not through fear, but through remembrance. Weeks later, the bamboo forest was sealed. A shrine was built at its edge. Yatmiko sat there every morning, lighting incense, reading the names. No more bowls appeared, no more walking corpses, only wind, and in the wind, a whisper of thanks. The chain was broken, finally. Thank you for watching.